Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
One Piece, Luffy's Mother is Who? By Rose 7 and 101. Marineford never happened. Big Mom learned something about Luffy that rocks the world to its foundations. Alliances are formed and tested, while the seas are thrown into turmoil as Luffy's allies rush to save him before it is too late. Adios.
The momentum was changing. Fast. And not in the way he was expecting. For the last 5 days, he had been slowly and methodically breaking them bit by bit. He loved seeing his prey struggle, clutching for hope, as he tore limbs, and the hope with it, from its body. His prey was on its last leg, literally and figuratively without it even knowing. Until these bloody play pirate newcomers came along. The Straw Hats, leading a rabble of other gangs. He should have made his move much sooner. He shouldn't have let it take this long. This wasn't the time for what if, for regrets or hesitation. He needed to end this here and now, to regain the initiative. Despite the surprise strike to his rear, his army was still the larger one, and all-blooded veterans. They could still handle this. First though, he needed to finish off the minks before their own reinforcements arrived. If he could cut off the bloody dog's head, then the will of the minks would break until the cat got here. With the real threats out of the way, he could handle the wannabe captains in turn, and it would all collapse. Let's see how the legs dance without heads to guide them. He also had to see why his men were yelling about samurai. Was it Raizo, or had the other two appeared? Tracking down the dog leader was easy. He was right in the middle of it, acting all proud and self-righteous as ever, even though he had run away before. Finding his prey, he pounced. Jack growled the prey. With a clash of their blades, Duke Inuarashi quickly found himself on the defensive, yet Jack knew the mink was doing so not because he was feeling pressured, but because of a plan. Aiming to stall Jack and conserve his energy, so that his own people could help the newcomers deal with the rest of the beast pirates, and then overwhelm the disaster when he was on his own. Unfortunately, it might even work. After all, he had been unable to bring down either of the head minks these last few days. So obviously it was time to change the rules of this game. So with that, he shifted, calling upon his true power. His face mask melted into his face, even as his nose elongated into a massive trunk, with tusks spouting out of his face. Thick, shaggy fur coated his limbs even as they and his body swelled up with hard muscles, combining the strength and durability of a mammoth with the speed of his human form. His 2 legs ended in animal feet to help his stamping, while his 2 hands tightened on his swords. "Don't get cocky," growled Jack, hefting his weapons. "This is where it ends." -0 fighting alongside them was the literal manifestation of every dog's wet dream. A pile of bones. A feast they called a bon appetit. Pity they were busy fighting for their life, yet to even be able to feast her eyes. Wanda was barely able to dodge the incoming attacks. Even though she wasn't sure who the newcomers were, and if they were true allies, or just shared a common enemy, she was thankful for their help. Truly, she was. Although she and her dog companions seemed to be underperforming since the help arrived. The reason? A colorfully dressed skeleton with a big black afro on his skull, wielding a cane sword and easily cutting through the enemies. The absurdity of the scene was tickling her funny bone. But Wanda didn't have time to contemplate too much about how tasty it would be to chew a running away skeleton. Garchu. It would be a catch game only with bone. Yum. Delicious. Dodging a deadly attack by releasing Electro from her sword, Wanda forced herself to focus on the fight. She wasn't a little pup who couldn't wait to chew on a delicious crunchy bone. After the fight, she would call first dibs with her status as a ranking musketeer, and ruler's aide, and enjoy herself fully. The skeleton moving closer to where she wasn't helping her resolve. A sudden attack aimed at him made her gasp, but he dodged expertly, and with swift swing of her cutlass, she helped take out the attacker. The skeleton turned to her, giving a bow. He introduced himself. "I am Brooke, my beautiful lady. I appreciate your assistance." That attack was dangerous. It could have cut me to the bone. I'm nothing but bones. She nodded along, hypnotized. What? Wait, that made no sense. She must have heard wrong. "Oh, but I don't have meat on my bones to begin with, 'cause I am a skeleton," he continued, turning to face the enemies. He laughed. Yo ho 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 ho. She saw some of the enemies take a few steps back. He flourished his cane sword and turned to look at her for a second with a toothy smile. His empty eyes socket poured at her as he announced, "Skull joke," and just like that he was back to cutting their enemies. In that moment, Wanda had an epiphany. The skeleton had a body to die for. There was a race that was basically the alpha and omega of a bag of bones. Forget about protecting Zoe. It was clearly an order from the Bones gods, for the dog Minx to chase it down. Garchu. Unfortunately, they first needed to take care of the enemies in front of them. With a fearless smile, Wanda howled her attack. -00 Riku Viola's eyelids were squeezed shut with concentration as she described the ongoing battle as fast as she could. With her devil fruit, she provided unparalleled insight into the enemy, and their mink allies. "The minks are gathering their wounded over there," she reported while pointing, eyes still closed. 400 meters, some are critically injured. Her brother-in-law Kairos barked out orders. "Inform Dr. Chopper, and ensure he has an escort." Admiral Orlumbus was also directing the troops beside him. "Lay down heavier firepower to the port. Give covering fire so the minks can fall back to our lines. Leo, your dwarfs grab their wounded and get them to Dr. Chopper. Also grab any weapons you see, so as to deny them to the enemy. Viola, is there a path through the city ruins to the starboard we can sneak some men forward through?" They were all cogs of different shapes, sizes, even metals, yet, somehow, against all odds, they were all clicking together. Sometimes the cogs did not fit perfectly, and needed to be moved elsewhere, but overall each and every cog in this alliance had come together to build one instrument of destruction. You had to wonder what kind of havoc this instrument would unleash upon the world once everything was finally smoothly fitted and moved with each other harmoniously. It would be a terrifying sight indeed. Especially since above all, this battle, it was a mere stepping stone. A means to vent their rage as they worked towards their greater goal of rescuing the centerpiece of it all. Straw Hat, Luffy, and Sanji, she thought, before pushing down any further thoughts about him. -00 Any concerns Nami and Chopper may have had about the minks, after Caesar and a few other pirates told stories about how bloodthirsty and territorial they were promptly dismissed once they saw them. Leaving Usopp to snipe from the distant rear with his enlarged black kabuto, they had snuck up along the fringes of the battle. This way they could stay out of the heavy fighting while still finding ways to contribute, as well as safely vent their frustrations. However, of course this led them to finally meet some of the minks. A whole bunch of them lying side by side. Bleeding. Gasping for breath while somehow grasping onto life despite how they should be dead from injuries like those. Doubtless dragged over here to safety by others. Except both pirates recognized all too well the stubborn gleam in those eyes to get back up and help their comrades win, even if at the cost of their very own lives. "Stay still," yelled Chopper, as he ran up to the bewildered minks who only then noticed them. Anticipating his skills as a doctor would be necessary, he was in his human form, so he had several large bags of medicinal supplies on him, which he broke out to start applying to the minks. You can't help anybody if you die trying to get to them. Stunned by this display of resolve and protection, the minks stopped a rabbit mink with blonde hair who ran up while looking as if she were about to attack to defend her injured companions. Reassured, she turned her back on the Straw Hats, and was now acting to guard them. Not that Nami was going to sit back and watch. Twirling her sorcery Klimattact which Usopp had upgraded during the voyage here, she crafted mirages to hide herself and the others. Then she began subtly charging the air around them, so if anybody did get too close or figure out what was going on, she would make them regret it. It helped if she imagined these savages attacking this place, and inflicting these kinds of injuries, to be the very same dead men who had abducted her captain. So with a smile, which she had stolen from Zoro, she prepared to burn with storms of thunder and lightning whoever came too close to her charges. -00 Wherever Robin's eyes swept, dead men fell. Faster than they could perceive, arms bloomed about their torsos, grasped, and clutched as bones went snap, crackle, pop. Like a goddess of death, the beautiful woman strolled across the battlefield, heedless of any threat. In truth, it was only her clone, while the real one was safely closer to the rear, able to disperse it as needed. For a few seconds she had considered going herself instead of the clone, when seeing the damage that was done to this ancient civilization. Those savages were destroying pieces of history. The fury that was simmering under her skin since her captain was taken from their hands had almost boiled over when she saw the destruction done by these fools. In this state, it took all of her steel will to keep her wits about her. A boorish man with a wolf's head for a hand yelled and charged at her, and it only took a few more arms to remove him from her path. The demon child needed this to be over with as soon as possible so she could get back to what was really important. She would be the one to follow her captain this time, reaching her hand out to him. Although removing such evil men from the world was nothing she was really going to complain about. -0-0 to their mutual disgust, Cavendish and Bartolomeo proved they made a surprisingly good team. The white horse would embrace his Hakuba side and tear a straight swath through the beast pirates, piercing deep into their lines. Just as he reached the point though where the enemy New World veterans were about to overwhelm him, or the moron would nearly fall asleep, the cannibal would project a barrier to not only surround his brother and keep him safe, their crews would then move up to support him, hurriedly wake him up if necessary, and secure the beachhead. Wash, rinse, repeat. While his nakama like Robin and Brooke were quiet, efficient, killing machines, Frankie was loud and bold, as inevitable and terrible as the storm. Bullets ricocheted off of him. Blades broke, all while he laughed in their faces, the smell of gunpowder and burning flesh following him. "I'm too super for you posers," he roared. "My skin is like steel, my teeth are swords. My guns stab deeper than spears. The shock of my fists a thunderbolt, my kuda burst, a hurricane, and my breath." He sucked in and breathed fire, death. -0 The flank of the beast pirates closest to the city was on guard for possible ambush. That meant they had a split second to see the missile right before it tore a massive hole into their ranks. Screams of pain, smoke and fire, and they all missed the pieces of the fire reform into a beautiful young woman in a maid's outfit, smoking a cigarette. "Gatling girl!" yelled Baby 5, as her leg became a machine gun to fire into the disorientated ranks, just as her fiancé Don Sai and the rest of his men charged out from the buildings, yelling war cries. Qin Zhao was content to let the new generation take the lead. Indeed, Sai had ordered him to hold back and to use his experience to observe for any threats or opportunities. That didn't stop him from cheerily throwing out his conqueror's haki against the rabble. This would be a glorious new chapter in the history of the Happo Navy. -0 "Gah!" cried out Usopp in pain as a bullet struck home, before biting his lip until he tasted blood. "Just a shoulder, and only my left one," he reassured himself. He adjusted his oversized slingshot so it was firmly planted without needing his arm strength as much, and pulled back for a shot of his own which took down the pirate who had gotten him. "Good, no one hurt me. Chopper's busy enough helping people actually dying. I have to tough it out. Because as bad as this hurts, who knows what sort of horrors Luffy and Sanji are suffering." -0 Sanji was so busy slathering over the pretty maid, he nearly missed what she was asking him. "Wait, what? A body? What body?" "The body of the late SBAG, she delicately answered. It was a recent rule that Vinsmoke Judge was to only be addressed in terms of various curses and insults. "Ah, thank you, we will discuss it," he promised, and shut the door to the private suit. He turned around to face Luffy and Reiju. "I say we desecrate the corpse. Any suggestions?" "Sanji," pouted Luffy, waving a large hunk of meat. Sanji's captain was lounging on an antique, sinfully soft, handcrafted sofa probably worth more than whatever his current bounty was. "Why? Why not? Why waste your time fussing over somebody already dead?" countered his captain. "He's no longer important." "TCH. Right, no giving Judge, even in death." The satisfaction of thinking Sanji or Reiju spared him another though. No giving him anything, honestly, what had he been thinking? Reiju had just been about to suggest leaving the body out for the birds to eat, or impaling the head as a new figurehead at the front of the core part of the moving Snail Kingdom. The latter would have been poetic, given how proud he had been of that oil painting of himself standing over the heads of 4 kings. A painting which, along with everything else of that nature, was being dragged out by the servants to be burned. Now though, she held her tongue. She did not want to upset Sanji, her brother, or Luffy, her fiancé, since obviously they could hardly offend Big Mom by canceling the wedding. "Yeah, you're right," grunted out Sanji. "It's just," he gestured around, "it still bites to be here." In a display of true selflessness, Luffy silently handed Sanji some of his food which Sanji had prepared for him, and patted him on the back. The chef tried not to cry as he accepted the gift. Now feeling awkward, Reiju coughed into her fist. "What if we just dump it overboard?" "You," grimaced Sanji, before his gentleman instincts kicked in. "I'm sorry sweet sister, forgive me. I'm just concerned about any fish who might swim by and get a stomach ache from him." "Burn him? Are we giving him a funeral?" "Sure, are you going to write him the eulogy?" "The nicest word I can say about him, was that he was an asshole." The noises of food crunching suddenly grow even louder, prompting the two siblings to turn to the source. Luffy with a mouth full of food, and hands busy shoveling more in was trying to speak. Or at least that what they had assumed was happening. Sanji noted that his sister was looking at his captain with some kind of fond tolerance, instead of the disgust the scene usually brought on the watcher if he or she wasn't part of the Straw Hat crew. YVK. SKD. And, ya. Jaj. Jaji. Sanji repeated the word enjoying each syllable, recognizing it as a North Blue slang for, "Oh sure." You could argue it was a total coincidence, but Sanji was going to interpret it as a sign of the fates, who were all lovely ladies of course. "You're right, Captain. Judge isn't an asshole, he's a." His sister caught on fast, acting perfectly composed as she added, "Indeed, grandmother, rest her soul, knew what she was doing when she named him." He ed his way into an early grave. Him sitting on his throne was just like a sitting. Quack. Quack. The straight faces they had as they exchanged pleasantries both of them burst laughing. The ruckus was so loud that Luffy glared at them in some contempt for disturbing his meal like that. They both looked at him apologetically. Despite this, Sanji had to finish with, "A funeral where we can curse and burn him, such a wonderful idea. I like it, it's a move." Reiju found herself laughing so hard it hurt, loving the sensation of acting so improper for a Germa princess. Truly Luffy and Sanji were giving her a new life. With some effort and a few minutes which the boys patiently gave her, she composed herself, wiping her eyes. But seriously, she asked, "Do you really want to deal with his corpse any longer than necessary?" He wrenched the door open and firmly told the servants, "Kick it overboard." -00 yes. Usopp knew. Whatever pain I'm feeling is nothing compared to what they must be going through. So I had to push on forward. It had been 5 days since the battle had first begun. The Heart Pirates were supposed to wait for their captain here. That was their promise. Even though they all agreed to it, they still wished they had stayed with their captain to face Doflamingo, to help him in his quest for revenge. It was good to be home for Beppo. It had taken him 14 whole years to return here with a crew he was proud to be with. He even learned navigation for this sole reason. He wanted every one of the minks to meet his captain, the person he chose to follow. He couldn't wait to tell the captain about everyone's reaction to seeing Zunesha. Penguin almost fainted when he saw the elephant. He would have liked to see his captain react too, but he knew the guy would have his stoic face firmly on. "Beppo, concentrate," Shachi yelled as the polar bear almost stumbled in his run. They were called to come urgently back to the battlefield even though the cycle of their rest had not ended yet. Lord Nekomamushi had shouted orders to the guardians and burst out, running with a loud laugh Goronyanya. Unfortunately the mink ruler of the night was in such a desperate rush, he had neither the time nor the patience to explain anything. Those who were healthy enough were to simply follow along as fast as they could manage. Everyone else just stumbled along, forcing themselves through the cramps, pain, exhaustion, and weariness to wake up and fight once more. The Heart Pirates followed with the rest of minks, confused and drowsy, hoping against hope that Lord Nekomamushi's laughter and behavior meant some good news. Maybe the fight was coming to an end, and a final push was needed for victory. Beppo refused to think of the alternative. Or better yet, some allies? Had their captain arrived? "Yeah, after we finish them, we will go get fish," Penguin said, running by his side. Even fatigued by fighting almost non-stop for 5 days straight, they refused to let the minks get ahead of them. It was his idea for the crew to join the fight. It was his home and he wished to protect it. His equally headstrong crewmates followed his wishes and threw themselves head-on into battle, giving it their all. Beppo felt guilty whenever he saw their injuries and tiredness. "I miss Captain. I want to cuddle," Jean Bart snorted. "Get ready," he called as they passed through some trees blocking their sight of the battle. Even the human members could clearly hear the intensity of the battle though. "Oh," someone beside him let out. "Oh, indeed." Everyone could see 5 giants towering over the battle from the other side. Everyone shared wary looks, afraid that they were called as reinforcements against those giants. Like fighting the beast pirates alone wasn't enough. "They don't wear the beast's stupid uniform," pointed out Penguin hopefully. The giants were wearing a variety of clothes that differed in color and style. Mainly metal helmets, colorful open fur vests, shorts or baggy pants, large belts and huge long boots. That didn't fit the uniform of the beast pirates. But none of them were willing to relax and take the risk. After all, no giants were their allies, and so his tiny hope was crushed. It wasn't his captain who had arrived. Everyone moved sluggishly to their formation. Teamwork was the key for both their attacks and defense, and despite their exhaustion from fighting for 5 days straight with minimal rest, it was the key to their survival until now, and they silently swore all the heart pirates would be there to meet their captain. That was their promise. Beppo shifted his body to a fighting stance beside Jean Bart. Their strategy centered on Jean Bart being the vanguard with Beppo giving him support. His crewmate used his massive strength and flintlock pistol to let others regroup whenever they needed to launch a new attack. Shachi and Penguin then launched their attack combos to catch the enemies off guard, while the rest supported their flanks. "Hurry up, Captain." A sudden explosion made even Jean Bart take a few steps back. The smoke made them feel uneasy. Beppo tried to smell the air, afraid the enemy had used poison or room. "Didn't I tell you to lay low and not cause trouble?" "Captain." Shouts of relief and happiness could be heard by every heart pirate. "You're here, finally." Beppo couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears were pouring from his eyes. "Captain, you came for us." Beppo ignored the shouts of, "You moron, we're still in battle. Hey, watch out. Beppo, what or why?" He flung himself at his beloved captain. Like a maiden that hadn't seen her Prince Charming for eternity. He used his legs to hold Law's waist and engulfed him in a real bear hug. No, this wasn't the cuddling bit. "You're here, I missed you, Captain." Beppo rubbed Law's cheek with his, feeling relief and happiness. "All the members of the Heart Pirates are here." "Beppo, do you want to squash the captain?" "Yeah, I hate to interrupt, but we have a fight finish," called Jean Bart, giving his captain a nod. It was clear that with new arrivals, the tide had turned. For the first time since coming here, the invaders were forced solely onto the defensive. Sorry. Beppo released him with a jump, and with newfound vigor he stood in front of his captain, ready to fight. "You can cuddle later," whispered Shachi conspiringly into Beppo's ear, with a teasing laugh as he stood near his partner, Penguin. Law just smiled a small, almost unseen smile. His crew knew what it meant. They all involuntarily straightened their backs. No, none of them missed that familiar, beloved, small smile. "We have a lot to catch up on, but, for now we have beasts to slay." -0 the doctors were all fighting their own bloody, life and death battles. Although this time the minks and ship doctors did not have to worry about the fighting themselves, as a small army of bodyguards surrounded them. Chopper tuned out the sound of the fighting around him, trusting in his crewmates and their allies to keep him safe. Keeping people alive was his job, and it was a grisly, uphill struggle in its own right. Another mink brought one of her companions for help, and Chopper conscripted her to help hold the wound shut. Something about her smelled familiar underneath all the blood, yet all he could think about right now was if she could follow his instructions, and he would be most grateful if her blonde hair did not fall into her eyes. -0 with the arrival of the Guardians reinforcing the Musketeers. Even if both groups were exhausted, Jack knew they were truly in trouble. He had failed to kill the dog yet, and he and his men were caught between 2 different armies, and being steadily torn to pieces. Even worse, only now was he recognizing how tired his own men were. While the minks had been cycling out their people, he had just kept sending his own forward. Who cared if some of them fell? He always had more reinforcements. That was how it had always been, except now he did not. The accursed rookies and samurai had already killed them. It was all up to him then. Jack growled that Sheepshead, the highest-ranking headliner, was to take charge, and rushed once more at the DHI's focus into killing one of the leaders, so the tide would shift back into their favor. Unfortunately, it never occurred to him how in the growing panic, the headliner in question would have trouble asserting any authority over his crewmates, much less be heard. The whole mess, the whole slaughter, was too chaotic. It quickly became two armies tearing into a single, violent mob. -0-0 panting for breath. Duke Inuarashi barely deflected another blow from Jack before leaping back some more. He should have expected it really. After all, they had seen the ancient zone users' pure animal and pure human forms, so it was more of a surprise it had taken so long for him to unveil his final one, the hybrid. Unfortunately, it meant he could not draw out Jack as planned, and then overwhelm him with the help of Kinnaman. And yes, it was Kinnaman, and someone he was sure was Kanjuro. He had broken away from his fight with Jack briefly to lay eyes on them, and confirm the news. It had been risky for his men, yet unfortunately necessary. Regardless, with his old brothers in arms, they could cut down this monster. Or even alongside those pirates. Particularly the green-haired swordsman who was currently carving a swath through the remaining beast pirates with those strange, zone-like abilities. However, if this took much long, a disgustingly familiar roar confirmed his worst fear. "You mangy mutt!" yelled Nekomamushi as he landed beside his once friend, now hated rival, facing down Jack. "How could you let our nation fall into such disrepair while we have guests here? Well, maybe if you weren't lounging around with a bag of catnip, it wouldn't be in this shape," Inuarashi snarled back with equal loathing. However, as much as it sickened them, both of the Mink Kings knew this was not the time to resume their deep grudge. While they had not been able to take care of Jack before alone, they had been slowly winning against the rest of the pirates, and now with this army of reinforcements it was the time to strike hard and fast for victory. With a growl of rage, Jack the Drought redoubled his efforts. Yet they could sense the desperation behind his temper. Holes opened up in his defenses in his need to cut even one of them down. Playing on this, and how the monster had already gone days without rest, the two defenders were content to dodge and parry to force him to expend more and more energy. To make himself more and more vulnerable in his anger. All of that changed in one desperate, violent moment. "Inuarashi! Nekomamushi!" cried a voice so familiar it cut right through their hearts even after 20 years. Kinnaman, Kanjuro, they grinned in joy. Too happy to see their old comrades to even be angry they were saying the same thing together. "Let us lend you our aid," grinned Kanjuro, readying his inkbrush. -0-0 The life of the perfect trader and mole was an exhausting performance, yet all the sweeter from the exertion. Meticulous planning and smooth improvisation in one. Evening shower, Kanjuro of the 9 red scabbards of the Kazuki family, truly Kurozumi Kanjuro. Most elite agent of Shogun Kurozumi Orochi, knew this all too well. Unfortunately, up until now, his efforts in Zou had largely been stymied. Too many factors had been in play in Dressrosa for him to properly sabotage Kinnaman, especially since he had originally believed Momonosuke was sailing away from the island, and thus needed to be tracked down again. Now Jack was indeed assailing Zou as planned, thanks to the Vivre card which Kanjuro had provided. Only it had taken him too long, and the Hor Nami navigated them through the seas too fast. Upon arrival, there had been too many people around, too tense and alert, for him to attempt anything. Not even to leave behind an ink clone to nab Momonosuke, who had been left behind with only Rebecca. Worse, Kinnaman had pointed out how he could actually help people scale this oversized elephant. Now though was his chance. It may only be Jack, yet all the 9 red scabbards were intimately familiar with the power of the All-Stars. A few mistakes before outright betrayal, and Jack would kill off all these pirates, animals, and rebels. True, he may not believe Kanjuro's tale even after the others were dead, and thus kill him, although that was nothing to weep about. It would simply be the closing bit of dramatic tragedy to the ultimate performance. With their deaths though, it might be enough for Jack to break free. And when he descended this elephant he would find Momonosuke vulnerable except for the protection of a delusional child. Let the performance begin. The curtains had just opened, and it was now his time to shine. -0 For Odin, cried Kanjuro as he charged straight into the midst of battle, hefting his ink brush, for the Kazuki. Wait, Kanjuro, shouted Kinemon, before giving chase after his longtime friend. Their mink brethren deserved the kill here, as it was their people being invaded. To interfere was an insult. Alas, he could well understand the pain which drove his comrade to such foolhardy recklessness. Grimacing, he hurried to catch up. Moving his ink brush into a stance for a powerful stroke, Kanjuro leapt up into the air at the massive beast pirate. Contemptuously Jack swept up one of his blades to cleave right through the samurai. No, cried Inuarashi and Nekomamushi, horrified to see a comrade die. They knew how dangerous Jack was, but refused to let him succeed. With a roar they threw aside their earlier plan, and pounced in turn. Leaping up to block Jack's blade, putting themselves in front of their comrade, protecting him with their bodies. They refused to fall again. To see one of their own die in front of them, trying to protect them. They were not a powerless little pup and kitten like before. They had spent the last 20 years preparing themselves for this. They were not the ones who needed protecting. They were the ones that protected others. As when they both strained every muscle trying to block Jack's one-handed sword as it descended in midair. Even using both their hands and leaving themselves open for any attack, was not enough to stop a general of Yonko. He seemed all too aware of this, the look in his face and his gleaming eyes told them, as his other arm clutching his sword moved ever so slowly in its path toward them. Neither of them yielded, nor held any regrets. For a samurai, no greater pride is there than this, to lay down one's life for a friend. An ally. Someone who was equally willing to die for them in turn. Sounds and voices ceased to exist, as with bursting energy of resolve they tried to push the beast far from their comrades, but his other swinging arm didn't stop in its ascent. They were ready. Death was only a new journey, a blink. Sandals and boots hit solid ground, and they briefly staggered with disorientation. From the corner of his eye, Kinemon saw the ex-warlord Law holding up his hand in a painfully familiar position. Of course, his powerful spell. But wait! Jack's sword cut Kanjuro in half with a spray of blood. Fool, he sneered. No! Screamed Kinemon. Why? He turned his furious face to a perplexed Law, who snapped back, I thought he had a plan. Why else would he do something so stupid? He was a samurai, wasn't he? We could have saved him, hissed Nekomamushi. He should have known what Jack was capable of. You didn't even know him, pointed out Law, which made the retainers of the Kazuki clan freeze. And how would he have known? Oh. The web of secrets to protect their liege had led to this. Yes they do. Did? Kinemon painfully whispered. That is a long story we have yet to tell you. He grimaced. I know you didn't act maliciously, but please leave the rest of the fight to us. A look passed between Nekomamushi and Inuarashi, and they both nodded. Let us have a ceasefire, Cat, for the sake of our young lord. For his sake, and for Kanjuro's, we shall fight together once more. As he fought with all of his will to cling to life so he could redeem, and the certainty of his failure, were what Kanjuro carried with him as he passed over. -0 solemnly, Kinemon took a moment to close his friend's eyes, and sent a silent prayer. Tell our beloved lord we have not forgotten him, that we will keep his son safe, and fulfill his dying wish. His due to the dead fulfilled, he let a warrior's calm cloak him, and stood side by side with his old friends. Silently, Kinemon drew a katana, and held it at the ready. Surrounded by bleeding beast pirates, Zoro stopped to watch in interest, eager to see the samurai finally in action for a serious fight. He ignored the gurgling sound of his victim who laid at the swordsman's feet. Just some enemy who used weird sheep-based abilities, and had seemed to be giving orders to the rest. The three retainers of the Kazuki clan struck as one, the minks coming in from the side, while Kinemon came in from the front. Deftly Jack blocked the polearm and rapier, and sidestepped Kinemon. This was anticipated though, and at the last second Kinemon's observation haki let him compensate so he still grazed Jack and drew a drop of blood. While his sword blossomed into flames, swearing as his long, mammoth hair caught fire, Jack was distracted as the three samurai kept up their attacks, drawing blood more and more. With a mighty heave he threw them back, yet Inuarashi and Nekomamushi both drew long gashes along his arm. "The way he fights," mused Foxfire Kinnaman. "Indeed, he's just like the cat," grunted Inuarashi. It took Law and Zoro a moment to catch on as well, blinking in their individual shock at the realization. Neither Jack, a living nightmare of the New World, nor Nekomamushi, a foe able to rival the disaster, were using haki. It seemed unreal, yet drove home what kind of monsters there were in the world. Relentlessly the samurai held the initiative, drawing more and more blood from their foe, from a vassal of Kaido himself. The wind blasted the smell of his own burning hair to his face, while he forced his eyes to stay open as they watered from the thick smoke. As the fight drew on, their movements became sharper and cleaner, as muscles and spirit remembered a time from years ago as they had trained and fought as one unit. Loyal swords to be wielded in tandem by their beloved lord. With a roar, Nekomamushi suddenly abandoned caution to charge directly at Jack, only to swerve aside mid-air, deflecting the swords with his bladed staff, and spun so his long, bushy tail smacked him in the eyes. It took Jack a precious and fatal half-second to clear his vision. Inuarashi had grabbed a second sword, and mirrored Kinnaman's stance. The left blade held horizontally overhead, the edge facing the sky as if to cut down the heavens. The second held horizontally before them, ready to split open the ground down to the depths of the underworld. Blackened blades held at the ready. For the first time in 20 years, the legendary Oden II sword style was on display. Zoro was eyeing each movement intensely, trying to see how he could incorporate this beauty into his own style. Paradise 10 hands. A crimson geyser burst from Jack's chest, while his swords were cut in twain. With a scream of wrath, the last surviving lieutenant of the King of the Beasts barreled through the pain, grabbing each samurai in massive furry hands to crush them with raw strength. Die, they did not resist, merely staring levelly at him without fear. As one. It's over. One hand wrapped around the back of Jack's head to grab his face to hold it steady, a claw gouging into his eye, while swift as a viper Nekomamushi's jaws closed on the throat of his prey. Fangs tore into muscle, even as with a snap the neck was broken. With a twist he sent the corpse flying overhead, to fall before the remaining fighters. "It's over," he repeated, licking one paw to wipe his face. With the sight of their leader's death, the few surviving beast pirates able to overcome their disbelief, turned to flee, forgetting in their panic there was nowhere left for them to go on this moving island. The smarter ones threw down their weapons, and pleaded for mercy. "Oh, Kanjuro," mourned Kinnaman, tears flowing freely. "You will be remembered as a hero. We will tear down Orochi, and when he dies, we will toast you in Odin's name before him." "TCH, hissed Law out of earshot. He should be remembered as an idiot. -00 to 0. No, 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 sobbed Kanjuro, as he looked on at his failure. "What's wrong?" asked a friendly voice, a warm, helpful hand resting on his shoulder. "I failed," wailed Kanjuro. "I failed, Lord Odin and I." He broke off as it dawned upon him that he had died. Followed by the fact he was talking to a dead man. The world of the living with Kinnaman and all the rest faded away, and he found himself in a pristine, white place. All alone except for one particular person. Kazuki Odin, larger than life even as a ghost, and after taking his hand back, went back to enjoying his bowl of Odin. Because the man never got tired of that pun. "Lord Odin," he sang out with joy, "how it warms my heart to save it," said Odin. "Well, actually," he said, "so VFT." But Kanjuro was well accustomed to translating what the man said while his mouth was full. Yet one more thing he had hated about the failed usurper the entire time. Odin's eyes told him that he knew. The mask that he'd perfected over a decade of lies and deceit had crumbled away. Those knowing eyes. No, Kanjuro refused to cower before them. He was dead. They were both dead. He had nothing left to fear from this fool of a man, or any other. His eyes flashed with mockery, determination and contempt. A barely veiled sneer curved his lips. "My lord, how is death treating you?" Not receiving an answer did not deter him. "Did you think that your so-called sacrifice mattered, changed anything? Where is your dear lady wife? I should greet her and show her respect. Oh, did she run away from you? run away even in death, couldn't abide staying with such a failure. What did they call you, those ungrateful people that you wanted so much to protect? What was it again? Ah yes, the idiot fool, dancing naked, and begging for money. Have you no shame, O Lord of Curry? Do you know how embarrassing it was for me as your retainer? It was bad enough trying to fix your daily follies. What was it you said at your death? I am Odin, I was born to boil, he laughed cruelly. I see you still eat that garbage. Does it remind you of your heroic death? Did you think of yourself as a martyr? That anything you did mattered? Where are Denjiro, Ashura, and Kawamatsu? Your noble sacrifice only bought them a few more hours before they perished too. You are no martyr. No hero. Your despair and defeat. That's what you brought your people. The hope you planted in their hearts was crushed day after day for 20 years. What a cruel man you are. If you hadn't given them hope, then there would have been none to snuff out. And your dear Curry has become a wasteland. A hollow place fitting for a hollow lord. Don't you think, maybe you should go live there now that it has become a dead land? Well, almost. The remaining people will soon die with everything else there following your lead. Misery and death is where you lead your people, Lord of Kur, oops, I mean Lord of the Wasteland. The venom he was spewing wasn't erecting any reaction. The fool was still eating. Where is Lady Hiyori? She is dead, isn't she? Lord Orochi will kill Momonosuke soon enough. And then at least here you would be one happy family. Still no reaction. Not one muscle out of place. Kanjuro felt the rage inside him bubbling, a touch before overflowing. He gritted his teeth and screamed, "Do you really think Jack's death makes any difference? It means nothing against the power of Kaido. He will know of Jack's death by Vivre card, and use the one they made up for Raizo thanks to the samples I sent, to track this riff-raff down to kill them and your son. He'll boil the brat alive in front of whole crowds, and Thor have wild dogs eat him alive." Still unruffled, Odin tipped back his bowl to slurp down the broth. It was only now that Kanjuro's sinking heart accepted the truth. Odin did not think he was important enough to rage back at, or because he felt there was no point. There's some people to see you, the samurai interrupted again. He burped, and then added, "Don't look behind you." He turned and looked. Darkness, a moving darkness. Kanjuro didn't have a chance to scream before the shadows swallowed him. He could feel their malice though. Spirits consumed by wrath for him personally. Souls consumed by rage at the wrongs done to them, until they became twisted and corrupted into becoming terrible beings of vengeance. Waiting, breeding and bleeding blackness as they patiently waited to balance the scales against him, and all those like him. Their words entered his panicking mind like nails on a chalkboard. Traitor. Oath-breaker. Deceiver. Murderer. The only thing he glimpsed before his agony began was a large pot of boiling oil. -0 to 0 looking around in confusion as he landed atop Zoe. Marco the Phoenix flatly took in the sight, before leaning over the edge of the elephant to look down below. "Hey, Ace, it's your little brother's crew here. Get up before there's no more beast pirates left to barbecue." Looking around in confusion as he landed atop Zoe. Marco the Phoenix flatly took in the sight, before leaning over the edge of the elephant to look down below. "Hey, Ace. Your little brother's crew is here. Get your ass up here before there's no more beast pirates left to barbecue." Seriously? A kimono-clad figure sighed as he gazed over two figures racing to reach the top of the giant elephant. A phoenix watching over them. "Why do they have to make everything into a race?" murmured Izo. "I can't believe that fool is our chief of staff," a slender figure beside him muttered, her hands on her wrists as she gazed after said fools. "Well, Ace is a 2nd Division commander," muttered Izo. Both of them exchanged looks and let out a resigned sigh. A fishman came to join them. They have not seen each other in years, and apparently they still haven't been able to decide who is the older bee. He trailed off at the glares he received from the other two for daring to cut into their bubble. The two shared another look, only those that suffered under the hands of the so-called future leader would understand, and let out a long sigh, before leaping and chasing up after the troublemakers. -0 to 0 at the sight of their leader's death. The few surviving beast pirates able to overcome their disbelief turned to flee, forgetting in their panic that there was nowhere left for them to go on this moving island. The smarter ones threw down their weapons, and pleaded for mercy. Most of the defenders of Zou let the ones running do so. They were trapped upon a giant elephant, and getting down would take literal days, even if they got past the rearguard. Zoro was planning to give chase, yet even the likes of him needed a breather before doing so. Plus he wanted to have a word with the local minks before running around their territory. Even ignoring his impeccable sense of directions, he had to be sure the rest of his crew and their allies were safe here. Besides, it was not like they were in a rush, since in their panic those idiots were running the wrong way. They were headed towards the flank of the massive elephant, not the rear where they could have actually gotten down to their non-existent ships, or captured one of the Grand Fleet's ships. With a breather, the minks and their newfound allies would be able to pursue, exploiting their home field advantage. Meanwhile, Chopper had stabilized all of the wounded, and the mink doctors were looking to him as if they wanted to build a shrine in his honor. For some reason they pictured the shrine's garden filled with cotton candy. Well, Usopp was already being treated as a god, so what was another crew member being worshipped? Now Nami was wondering a little on how to form her own cult. Loyal worshippers willing to die for her, charitable donations. Yes, she could make this work. Maybe a holy war or two against the celestial dragons. Actually, that sounded pretty awesome. She would have to talk to the others about this later. It was her idea, so she intended to take the bulk of the income. Scratch that, she would take it all. Of course a pirate king would rank above even a god of gods. Well met, Straw Hats. The humans looked up in confusion at the giant who approached them. It's been a long 2 years, he continued, and we've both been busy. Oh, you're that guy from Sabaody, the auction house. That's right. Didn't get a chance to introduce myself before, but the Nami's Stanson. Glad to be able to repay part of my debt to the Dark King by helping his student like this. The majority of the minks were taking custody of the prisoners, or migrating towards their kings. For some reason they had joined with Kinemon in paying respects to Kanjuro's body. The rest of the minks were silently standing by the pirates. Not as guards, but with a sense of attentiveness which gave the impression they were there to help if asked. In the meantime though, they would wait for their rulers to approach. Not that this stopped them from individually giving their profuse gratitude. It was honestly creeping out their saviors a little. They were pirates, not heroes. During all this, Law had disappeared somewhere, although the Straw Hats figured he was catching up with his crew, making sure they were okay before driving off the last of those pirates foolish enough to invade. Still, once the stragglers of the beast pirates were finished, this would be a major victory. They were without their strongest fighters, including the last of the disasters, and what was left was little more than disorganized rabble. What could go wrong? Everyone, cried Viola. More pirates coming from the rear. Huh, wait. What about Momo and Rebecca? They're fine, it's Oh, it's the Whitebeard pirates. As when the Straw Hats hurried towards where Viola was pointing. Only Robin paused to talk to some of the minks. They are probably here to talk to us about our captain. As they are pirates too, you may wish to give us some space. Truthfully the minks were perfectly fine with their newest arrivals, yet it was not surprising that their saviors were unaware of this. Besides, they did need a breather. Plus time to allow their kings to mourn for the loss of their beloved companion. Anyways, the Straw Hats, some of the pirates with them, and various minks, hustled towards where Viola directed them. Ah, they're going after the remaining beast pirates, she said. Why are they? A geyser of fire erupted out of the forest along with screams of pain and fear. Never mind. The Straw Hats were unsurprised to arrive to find the battle already over, with members of the Whitebeard pirates standing over the remaining beast pirates. Even if it was just 2 Whitebeard pirates. What they were surprised about though, was who was with Marco and Ace. Sabo. Maybe they should have expected him. There was no way he could already know, but maybe some sort of big brother sense, something they were highly conflicted about, as now they had to confess their shame to 2 brothers. Or maybe that was what they deserved. Secondly, Viola had failed to mention that Rebecca was in Ace's arms, with a pink lizard which was totally not a child samurai coiled around her neck. Kairo's eye twitched at the sight of his daughter pressed up against that bare, muscular chest. Thankfully the pirate let his daughter go as soon as he stopped, and she hurried over to the rest. Are you alright? He softly asked her. Yes, she assured them. They just asked if I was a friend of Luffy's, and when I said yes, and explained what was happening, they decided to bring me along. For a beat the Straw Hats waited for Sanji's reflexive indignation on a woman's behalf. Really that he was not the one carrying a beautiful woman tightly against himself, before the dark gloom upon their souls mocked them. Instead the task fell to Viola. Carefully forming her words and body language to not be accusing, she asked, "Why'd you bring Rebecca up?" "Well, you wanted her safe, right?" huffed Ace. "And where's a safer place?" Zoro gritted his teeth, and began to open his mouth to confess what had happened. "We were a little worried we wouldn't make it in time," confessed Marco, his words confusing Zoro to silence. "Kaido's been keeping his people holed up tight in their territory, so when we got word he'd sent out a whole fleet, and with how you'd taken down Doflamingo, we figured they must have been after you guys too." He glanced around. "Although it looks like they were really after the minks, which is weird. Was it because they were after the dog and cat after this long?" "No," gritted out Nami. "So far it's just the one emperor we've got to worry about." The lack of fear in her eyes was both heartening for her loyalty, and concerning for her chances of surviving. As much as they had grown, these kids had no idea the true depth of the power of the emperors. Even if they had thrown together a respectable enough fleet. A part of Ace and Sabo took dark satisfaction at the pain in the Straw Hats' eyes. Hold feel that way after failing their little brother. Yet the greater part of them respected those feelings, and knew that Luffy would feel simply horrible for hurting them like this. "Our intent," Zoro said, "was to ask somebody here how to make a Vivre card." His eye narrowed. "Except you and Ace already have one of Luffy. So that saves us a step. But why were you looking for us?" "Well, obviously to save Luffy, of course," snapped Ace. "Of course," said Marco dryly. "First we had to make sure some people weren't going to do anything too hasty." -00 flashback. Luffy's mom is Big Mom, we know. We heard. How many times is he going to keep repeating that? Until he gets it. Maybe. Luffy's mom is Big Mom. When is that? Everyone among the Whitebeard pirated shared looks of despair. Luffy's mom is Big Mom. Can someone maybe make him sit down? All the pacing and muttering is driving me nuts. Go for it yourself, dude. Luffy's mom is Big Mom. Oh wait. That explains it. Ace stood frozen. Hey Ace. Hey. Someone poked him. Nothing happened. Ace, are you okay? More poking. Still nothing? Ace. Ace. Nothing. Poke. Ace jumps. I knew it. That's why I always lose at food eating contests. Huh? Did he finally snap? The news broke him? Ace. How many fingers am I holding up? Sit down. Come on Ace. Let me check your temperature. No, you don't understand. I eat a lot, right? His question was answered with dismayed looks and snorts, and Marcos murmuring under his breath about the bloody budget disaster. Luffy eats at least twice as much. A few looked at him in disbelief, some whistled. Marco thanked the gods above and below that the little boy wasn't his problem, and that any adoption plans by his father had been foiled. I thought he got it from Gramps, Garp the Fist? He also eats a lot. Marco prayed to be kept away from any of the monkey family as a whole, or anyone Ace thought of as family outside of their family. A lot doesn't even describe it. More a WWS and OHHS, and grumbling for him to get to the point. Luffy has two of them. He gets it from both sides of the family. So I didn't lose. Luffy was cheating, Ace announced proudly. Huh? That makes no sense. Of course it does. Luffy's mom is Big Mom. Wait. No. Oh no. Ah no. She's gonna go after him. There's no way he's ready for that level of a threat. Wait Ace. We don't know what she's planned. Hey, take a deep breath. Remember the last time. Don't try to stop me. He yelled over his shoulder at them while chucking Stryker into the ocean below. There goes the drama queen, again. Ace, wait a damn. Stop him, someone stop High. You do it, I don't. Then he leapt down after his ride. I got to go save. In his panicked haste, Ace had failed to properly compensate for the current waves around the ship, as his personal craft was half a meter away from where he was supposed to land on it. Blah, he cried, choking on seawater as he plunged through the surface. A moment later, he felt a familiar strong hand pulling him up from drowning. Thanks, Deuce, he coughed out. You're welcome, drawled his former first mate, and did nothing else. What are you waiting for? Get me to Stryker. Not gonna happen until you've cooled down. so I'd say this water's good for something. Deuce, he yelled. Ace, he calmly said back. Let me go or I'll blah. You did say to let go. Now, let's try and do this less hastily, -00 to 0% Ace just snarled in frustration at the reminder, only to then recognize the Straw Hats were looking at him quizzically now, their guilt momentarily put aside. Your pardon, Robin diplomatically broke in, but as far as we knew, it was not common knowledge Big Mom had abducted him. The Whitebeard pirates and revolutionaries all blinked at them in confusion, before dawning realization fell over their faces. You don't know? Know what? Okay, Ace? Fire Fist awkwardly coughed into a, well, fist. Oh come on, you've only been ranting about it the whole way here. Alright, guess you haven't gotten any newspapers lately. Bad weather or something? Yees. Drew out Nami with visible impatience. Right. Well, it turns out my darling little brother, and your chef, are getting forcefully married off by Luffy's mother, who happens to be Big Mom. That surprised me too. Are you guys alright? You're starting to scar? What? Oh, when Reiju found her boys, which was such a pleasant thing to consider, they were busy training. Her fiancé was literally throwing things at Sanji to practice his observation haki, while her brother was, rhetorically, throwing out advice on how to do skywalk. Apparently Luffy had already achieved a version of it, but it was too exhausting. That reminded her of a little something she had to get for Sanji later. Making a mental note of that, she sped forward to launch a kick at the back of Sanji's head. The kindest of the Vinsmokes ducked beneath her flawlessly, and she used her momentum to kick the ball at Luffy, who deftly caught it. Hey Reiju. He grinned. Watch it, sis, gruffed Sanji. All's fair during training, Sanji, she teased. I need to help keep you sharp after all. As much as she would like to engage in some banter, she had to remain focused though. This was a little time sensitive after all. In her hand she held up a sheath of papers. These are invitations made by the man who ate the male fruit. He works as an independent, and gives out letters for people to sign. Charlotte Katakuri left some with me in case there's anybody else you would like to invite. She meant, you, in the plural. Luffy and Sanji heard it in the singular. The chef grimaced, unsure of what he thought about all that. On the one hand, he was going to be marrying a beautiful girl, who would surely love him. Why, they might even kiss. On the other hand, he loathed with the festering darkness within his heart how the old geezer was being threatened over this. Hate and love, lust, warred within him, all while he was still upset about being here in the Germa Palace in the first place. Meanwhile, Reiju was becoming concerned over how blood would start to dribble from Sanji's nose while he panted, only to then switch to being on fire and glaring like a demon as his mood kept swinging around like a monkey which was already deranged before it then ingested too many espressos. Finally he just threw his hands up in the air and yelled, just do whatever, then he stalked off. Sometimes she worried for her brother. And not for reasons she would have imagined not so long ago. Well, fortunately his captain had remained, even if he looked confused. How about you? Luffy shrugged and ambled over. He still was not sure if Sanji would be going through with the wedding, but this was the sort of thing the best man did, right? He had asked Rayleigh about that a bit since Hancock kept bringing up marriage. He may have fallen asleep at times though. So who would be good to come to the party? Asked the Pinkette, handing him a pen and the stack of invites. UHHHMMM, he pondered, eyes screwed up in thought. A light bulb went off, and he quickly scribbled down a name on the indicated space of one of the invitations. Such was his enthusiasm, that he failed to properly read what he was signing. Later, Nami was going to be so disappointed in him, on so many levels. UHHMMM, Reiju echoed, if in a completely different tone. As much as she cared for the younger man, his handwriting was, well, atrocious. Illegible. Basically a messy scrawl. Intellectually she knew that those of lower birth did not have the same breeding and education as her, but goodness, truthfully she had expected something better given his lineage. No matter. In fact, Reiju was now visualizing helping teach him what he needed. Just the two of them. Together. Leaning closely towards one another he helped him. Her fantasies were interrupted as the piece of paper disappeared in a flash of light, and she realized she had been too distracted to correct it. Was that for your crewmates? She hazarded. Nah. They'll show up on their own. Oh. That might cause trouble with border security, but surely the Big Mom pirates would be expecting them. Besides, surely they would not go out of their way to cause a ruckus, right? Right? No, she already had a good idea of what sort of people they were. Still, as Queen Reiju, smoothing feathers over would be simple enough. No need to make Luffy think she was not taking him seriously by writing up one for them. Except, if they showed up, would Luffy and Sanji want to leave with them? Without her? Because they no longer needed her? No, of course not, they were both too kind, they would never abandon her? Still, she just might, maybe, just, not go out of her way to help them get in contact. And maybe have his crew sit at the back during the wedding. So she did not press the issue. Instead she swiped up the pen and remaining invites to do the rest herself. So who else would you like to come? Oh, well, it would be kinda nice if Vivi could come, but she's really busy back home. I'm sure they'd be happy to come, and for an event like this, people will go out of their way to come, and others will know better than to interfere, she promised. Writing the name down. The devil fruit powers involved here would, if the name was written properly, carry the necessary intent to reach the correct person. Where did you meet this Vivi? Oh, Alabasta. Wait, do you mean Princess Vivi? Yeah, why? The paper disappeared. That might be a little awkward. Still, it was a surprise to know Luffy and Sanji knew more royalty. Who else? Rayleigh? Ah, by Rayleigh, you mean the Dark King? I mean, Silver's Rayleigh. Yep, he spent almost 2 years teaching me. Well, that proved that rumor. Would the surprises ever stop? Still, the Dark King himself attending. That was a little bit unnerving. Yet surely he would behave, right? He was retired. And Big Mom would weigh the prestige of his presence over any slights from decades ago. Hancock. That name Reiju wrote down on automatic while still distracted over the whole Pirate King's right-hand bit. When the invitation disappeared, she reassured herself it was a common name from the West Blue. Will this be alright in water? Yes, it's made from a special paper? Alright then, Wimpy. No, wait, I mean Shirahoshi. Was he only inviting girls and one old man? The next he told her was a woman too. Then he gave a man's name. Him? She asked in disbelief. Are you sure? The man's reputation was legendary for a reason after all. Hey, he'll behave, promised Luffy. Probably, he'll find it funny at least. Well, in that case, what about your grandfather, Garp? No, Luffy answered in a flat voice, eyes wide with fear and old pain. Alright, managed Reiju. Maybe they had more in common than she thought? Is there anyone else you want to invite? A part of her wondered if he would be including his brother, the infamous 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. Except the presence of Gold Ace, or Portgas Ace, depending upon your preference, would guarantee some sort of incident, and possibly set off a war. So it was smart of Luffy not to. For the first time Reiju saw Luffy hesitate. Is something the matter, Shanks? He quietly murmured as he clutched the straw hat on his head. Red hair? The Yonko? Gasped Reiju. Yeah, murmured Luffy, not paying much attention to her reaction. She cleared her throat. Are you friends? How do you know him? I thought you only knew Whitebeard, and he is, she trailed off. Me and Shanks promised to meet at the sea, so I can't invite him, Luffy said with finality that stunned her. His eyes seemed to be blacker and deeper. Okay, she let out, but the mood stayed heavy and almost suffocating. In a desperate effort to alleviate the mood, she tried to make a little joke. What about Kaido? You know Whitebeard, Shanks. Big Mom is your mom. I think he would feel left out. Yeah, I almost forgot about the bastard. Did he know him personally too? We're going to kick his ass this time. That was before he kidnapped me. She had failed in lighting the mood. Stupid of her. She forget that Luffy was involved in the war 2 years ago. After the wedding we'll be going after him though. Reiju was reminded once more how she was going to marry an extraordinary man. What the hell was she getting herself into? Did he expect her to participate in his fight? Against an emperor? Why would she do such a thing? How could Sanji even think of going along with such madness? Except the little brother she remembered would never have dreamt of doing so. Only now she could clearly envision him lighting his cigarette, giving a confident smirk, and then setting off to fight a man who might as well be a god of destruction. Why? What had led him to become such a man to imagine he could do so? To make her think he might have a chance of winning, much less surviving? Was Luffy the reason for Sanji's change? People change with time, and what they experience shapes their personality and thoughts. She and Sanji didn't have an easy childhood or life as they both grew up here with the Germa 66. Yet, the adult Sanji that she saw so far was very different from what she had expected, especially when he was cooking and interacting with Luffy. He was so at ease, so at home. Even when Judge was still alive, Luffy's mere presence had given him confidence. Would the same happen to her? To tell the truth, he had already changed her, hadn't he? She had done something she'd never even dreamed about. He had inspired her to stand up to her father, to stand up for herself. For good. Taking her life into her own hands. For once, Reiju was looking forward to the future. -00 to 0. I received your invitation, Big Mom. Good, Morgans. You will be there? While it sounded like a question, it was closer to an order. Big Mom never asked, the Yonko commanded. And the world flipped itself on its axis to make it so. Of course, I would never miss such big news, Ma. Mama. Kawahahaha. Morgans, her voice turned grave. I really wasn't happy when my happy news was not shared like I announced it. Big Mom, with all due respect, you should have come to me from the start. You know I would have made sure everyone found out before the world government could meddle. Be sure you don't miss this wedding. Come early even, and afterwards, I want you to tell the world everything that happened. I would be honored, Mama. I'd never miss it, just a few more days, and I'll have arrived bearing gifts and wedding presents. That reminds me, I have a few surprises I wish to open in front of my guests, Mama. Clank. Oh, and that's why we need your help, Jinbei, Jammin. Ho, the king's large pet whale shouted his name in agreement. Both the minister of the right and left nodded their heads, looking at Jinbei expectantly. The king had just finished explaining to Jinbei about their predicament with the Tamade box, especially now that they knew about the relation between Big Mom and their savior Luffy. They had to pause their explanation at this part, and bring their guest up to speed. Jinbei and his crew had been traveling down below, and missed the news about Luffy's heritage. The minister of the right had to run off and bring back the old newspaper for him to read as proof, while the minister of the left had filled Jinbei in. The Knight of the Sea had a sudden dizzy spell, and sat on the floor of the throne room. It was probably 'cause he had yet to eat today, and it was easier to read sitting down. Yeah, nothing to do with the reality check that just punched him in the gut. And his head was certainly not swirling like he just got out of one of Pop's. So very fortunate their messenger had managed to find the local hero before he and his son pirates headed back to the Emperor's territory, and gave him their frantic request to come home first. I understand, nodded Jinbei, his thick eyebrows creased with deep thought. When will the candy be ready? I already asked the crew to be ready to leave at any minute. It should be ready in a few hours. We're sorry for the delay, but we're working to scrounge up as much as we can. We're fortunate as it is that we found some misplaced surplus. I wonder what kind of celebration it is, to ask us for another urgent delivery. Pa, I don't care. The problem is that we still need to send the usual quantity again next month, which is in less than 2 weeks. Their demands are becoming ridiculous. Is it our fault that they're having another celebration? Jammin, ho? The princess burst into the throne room. Her straw hat flying from her head, she had to back paddle to retrieve it and make her entrance again. Her ever-loyal pet shark Megalo swam by her side. Princess Shirahoshi, we are in meeting, you shouldn't. Luffy sent me a letter. What? Luffy did? Look, my name is on it. Indeed, Jammin, what does it say? What strange timing. And how did it get here? Maybe he wanted to get us word about Big Mom after what happened before they left? That would certainly help. Hurry, open it. Shirahoshi with her giant hands tried to delicately and carefully open the envelope. The king's glare stopped anyone from rushing his precious daughter, while Ho and Megalo both excitedly swam around her in circles. Oh, What? Glares from the king, Jinbei, Ho, and Malago shut the two ministers up. They cleared their throats apologetically, and said very quietly, sorry, what? This is not good for my heart, The princess fidgeted. Her shiny and bright face just seconds ago had turned ashen. It's a wedding invasion, you mean invitation? Jinbei corrected on reflex. Yes. Huh? What? Who's jammin', ho? The letter floated from the princess's shaken hands, and Jinbei swiftly caught it and scanned its contents. The crease between his eyebrows grew deeper and deeper. If the throne room was not deadly quiet, they might have missed his soft murmuring. That makes no sense. -00 to 0 silvers. Rayleigh should have stayed in bed. Or alternatively stayed back at Sabaody. Instead he had gotten word that Hancock had been stirred from Amazon Lily, and figured he had better go see what that was about. Especially given the latest newspaper articles about Luffy. Naively he figured it was because of his student's heritage, but no, it was because she wanted to skin Doflamingo alive, and make him into a ruffled shirt of all things for her fiancé. Now honestly he did not give a whit what happened to that man, but had to agree with Gloriosa that such a course might be a bit rash. Also tacky. It was halfway through their discussion when it happened. In a flash of light, identical envelopes appeared beside both him and Hancock. Instantly the Kuja pirates were on guard, weapons drawn. "Easy everyone," he said while waving a placating hand. "That's the mail fruit. It's just a delivery." "And there's no way it could be a threat, Neo?" asked Gloriosa. "It's been tried in all sorts of ways, but a mailman can only deliver messages, and nothing else. No bombs, gas, poisoned ink, whatever, it's perfectly safe. It was just paper. Words can't hurt you." To prove it, he picked up his own letter to read. "Oh, what do you know," he lied. "This was not safe, it was a disaster." What? Just what was Luffy thinking? Sending this? Did he send an identical one to her? Please no. Except deep down he knew his student had. Either this was a call for help with that surprising cunning people missed about Luffy, or an act of sheer stupidity that would be later classified as suicide by Boa Hancock. "Well, what does it say?" the pirate empress herself imperiously demanded. "Wheel," he drew out, stalling for time. "It's quite the surprise." Rayleigh held it in front of his face as if trying to read it better, while the paper covered his lips, mouthing to Sandersonia and Marigold, "Clear deck." About Luffy. Clear deck. Being sharp ladies, they caught on, and began to discreetly do so. Impatiently, Hancock snatched hers up and read it. He followed her eyes as they scanned from top to bottom, while the Kuja pirates read the mood and fled as quietly as possible. Once more she read it over. Again, trying to make her brain process it. Ultimately she figured it out. WHO the dollar asterisk, %% is, and %% hash, Vin asterisk, and carat smoke $$ carat, asterisk carat, plus Reju the and carat dollar $$ and asterisk daughter of a dollar and asterisk, carat percent dollar $$ sucking $% asterisk, in carat dollar breathing, and asterisk carat percent $$ carat asterisk carat and percent whore from $% carat asterisk asterisk, in carat percent dollar WHO $dollar percent carat and asterisk with her $% carat and asterisk, in asterisk carat percent dollar asterisk, and while asterisk and carat $% percent in carat. Luffy is my asterisk, and in carat asterisk darling, and together we'll $% and asterisk percent hash, even as I percent carat percent asterisk, feed her percent and carat asterisk intestines and keep her statue for asterisk carat percent dollar percent carat. After his initial surprise, Rayleigh just tuned out her invective. Since she tended to kill sailors before they even had a chance to swear, he figured she had learnt such words in Mary Joieuse, so best not to point them out to her. Although personally, he had been to that island she referenced, and felt the people there did not deserve their reputation. During this tirade, Gloriosa appeared visibly tempted to intervene, maybe chastise their queen for proper behavior. However, the older woman was also clearly deciding not to provoke her successor. If Hancock would kick her flying while in a cold, or mildly irritable mood, right now she might skip straight to murdering the nearest, convenient target. Best to not draw attention to oneself. I'll let her vent a little more before suggesting that this is a crafty scheme of his. Emphasize how he's the victim in this, caught between his mother and a woman that surely he has no interest in. Actually, given some of the things I've heard about the Germa 66, this Reiju might be a real threat to him. Yes, that'll do. She'll believe it. The tricky part is what happens next. I was planning to stay retired, but this looks like too much fun to pass up. I mean, actually attending one of Lin Lin's parties as a legitimate guest. How can I pass that up? What am I going to wear? I'm a pirate still, who'll care? Oh, right, my wife. She'll want to come too actually. And I can bring a +1, so that's good. With a groan he realized that the Dark King or not, this meant Shaki was taking him clothes shopping. Did the world go crazy these last few days? Murmured Mr. 3 to himself while rubbing his head. Even though it had been almost a full day, he was still feeling the lingering hangover from that last party which had taken them all out of commission. The others were even worse, as he was one of the few that didn't drink, comparatively speaking, too much. He continued scanning the newspapers from earlier this week that they had all been too wasted to read. As he read, he sometimes paused either from the headache, or to do a double take, or triple take, at the latest reveal, all the while murmuring to himself, crazy, unbelievable, what has the world had come to? Buggy, your pal is in the newspaper. What? Speak softly, my head, moaned Buggy. Mr. 3 pushed the open paper in front of the clown, who tried to shake his head into sobriety without success. I keep telling you, if it isn't about me, I'm not interested, he finally said, and it was a surprisingly coherent sentence for how drunk the man still was. The hiccup he let out at the end ruined the effect. But, it's Straw Hat, that damn Straw Hat brat, what did he do now? Buggy tried to open his eyes to see the paper still somehow in front of his face. Wait, don't tell me. Let me guess, he already destroyed Hiccup Ini's lobby, and declared war on the world government, infiltrated Impel Down, and broke out. With your help, some drunken head corrected. Of course, he helped me, it was all my idea, without the great, Buggy it wouldn't have worked. Cheers filled the room from his adoring drunken followers. Then they beat each other for being too loud and hurting each other's heads. It was both the physical, fists, and physical, hangover, kind. Anyway, he also joined the war between Whitebeard, Kaido, and the Marines, and not only got out alive but was on the winning side. If we keep up this line of thought, it's either he destroyed Marineford, or challenged a Yonko. Please say, Shanks, or maybe picked a fight against one of the other warlords. Not me. He wouldn't stand a chance against the great Buggy. Of course not. Someone tried to shout but ended with an audible whisper. He would have to be suicidal, someone else groaned. Your friends, moaned another. Yeah, Straw Hat owes you his life. Of course, but that is nothing between pirates such as us. Shaking his head again, Buggy focused on Mr. 3 again. So which was it? He demanded, while others tried to cheer, only it predictably ended as whimpers. It's all of them and none, all at the same time. What do you mean? Luffy defeated Doflamingo. I called it, Buggy shouted in triumph, tried to make a pose, fumbled and fell, almost planting his face into the floor if not for the help of Mr. 3 who was able to keep him on his feet, somehow. Captain Buggy is the greatest of the warlords now. He was always the greatest, Doflamingo is chicken shit. I thought he was flamingo shit. There's more, Mr. 3 shouted, getting everyone's attention, which wasn't hard when you were the only sober one. Given the situation, he had no sympathy for the pain his volume caused. What do you mean there's more? You see about the Yonko bit. He challenged Shanks. No, finished the job with Kaido. Big Mom? Who? Damn it. Oh, turn on Whitebeard and take the old man out Hiccup, before me. Buggy shouted in rage while gripping his aching head, and ended up whispering. The shitty bastard, in a barely heard whisper. His crew moaned with him, or maybe because of him. Captain Buggy could take them all on, shut up. My head, yeah, Captain Buggy, why didn't you? Let's do it, right now. You're the future king of all. Apparently, Big Mom is his mom, WHO? Big Mom is Straw Hat Luffy's mom. Say what? Big Mom is L. Nah, I get the components and the grammar of the sentence, I think Hiccup. Big Mom is Luffy's mom, that's what you said, right? Mr. 3 nodded his head, only to realize Buggy was still unable to see clearly as he continued to look confused until Mr. 3 confirmed verbally. Yeah, I'm still waiting for it to make sense, Buggy uttered. But, isn't he the son of the revolutionary dragon? Someone cheerfully asked. Yeah, he is the son of Big Mom and Dragon, and his grandfather is Garp, hero of the Marines, Mr. 3 reminded them. Wow, my god. What a lineage, my head, stop talking. Captain Buggy's a friend of his. What would you expect, after all, Captain Buggy was part of Gold Roger's crew. Straw Hat O's our captain. Ignoring the ruckus the news generated, Mr. 3 whispered to the dumbfounded drunken Buggy, "Are you okay?" Yeah, my life just passed by in front of me, and I'm so drunk, hick, that I can't see what is in front of me. Maybe it's the alcohol." Mr. 3 cut in. "Yeah, I understand. You told me that you almost killed him, where the Pirate King died. I mean, you would have the revolutionaries after you, Big Mom, Garp, and he has his brother Fire Fist Ace." The hiccups miraculously stopped. Buggy was cured, hooray. So why was his life flashing in front of him once more, twice, thrice, vividly and more colorful each time? The alcohol seemed to evaporate more as well with each cycle. It took a few minutes for his survival mechanism to kick in within his muddled brain. Without it, he would have never survived being on Captain Roger's crew. Denial. Admirals after them. Denial. Pirate crews united against them. Denial. At least I am not involved with this guy anymore. Thank God for. His announcement was cut with the sudden appearance of a fancy envelope in his hand in a flash of light. Buggy had a really bad feeling about this. With a shaking hand he gave the envelope to Mr. 3, who took it quietly and examined it before opening it. It's a wedding invitation. Phew, wedding invasion. Invitation. It has nothing to do with wretched brat. Wait, who would invite me to a wedding? Whose wedding? Whose wedding? Repeated Buggy, perfectly sober and dreading the answer. Straw, no. -00 back within her new quarters, well away from the tower which she had been stuck within for so many years, a princess wept. What do I do, Megalo? Sniffed the princess to her pet shark. Said shark was swimming around her in circles with an oversized straw hat on his head that kept slipping sideways as he moved. Luffy is going to get married. I don't know. I feel so confused. Jinbei said that the bride's family is like really evil. Germa 66 or something. That something doesn't seem right. Ichi kept saying, another sniff. I know, no, I should stop crying or Luffy would keep calling me a cry baby. The princess wiped her eyes furiously. Jinbei said that maybe Big Mom was making him do it. But what if he likes this girl, and wants to be with her? Marry her and he will go on an adventure, together with her. So who is getting married? Luffy is get. The princess cut herself off with a gasp. Luffy is to be married. No, he is married, he is not married. He may get married. Who cares if he gets married? Oh, Ichika, Nika, Sanka, Yonka, and Yonka too, wailed the princess as she let her tears slide down her cheeks. No, she wasn't a crybaby. She was just sad and frustrated, she wasn't. Maybe it was because of her relief, but the princess didn't even think to wonder about how the mermaid quintuplets had arrived inside of her quarters, which were supposed to be some of the most secure in the castle. Maybe the threat of Vanderdecken IX was gone, but she was still the only princess of the kingdom, and the youngest royal child. Don't cry, princess. There is no reason to cry. No shame in crying, cry. It is okay to maybe cry. Who cares if you cry? Our mermaid quintuplets swam in circles near the princess, emitting a protective aura even if the only threat at present was the growling noise of Malago's tummy, yet they still gave her space. They observed the princess with different degrees of worry. Through heaving and hiccuping sobs and with tears streaming down her face, the princess told them the story, and they were able to get the gist of what she was saying. I see, you see, the mermaid princess asked, because she wasn't sure if she herself did. Me too. Maybe 3, 4, what? Luffy needs help, Ichika announced in finality. He needs rescue, as usual. Nika wholeheartedly agreed. He does, the princess wondered. No, he doesn't. Sanka was always on the anti-team. If in the far-off future, Fishman Island ever ditched their monarchy for something like a self-governance system, Sanka's role as a government official, please. No one would dare not vote for her, would permanently be that of the opposition leader, no matter which party ruled. He might need rescue, Yonka the ever cautiously optimistic doubter declared. Her sisters and friends found themselves calling her fact-checker, neutral, and Switzerland. And then they would pause and wonder why strange foreign words kept coming to their minds, and then move on with their lives. So what if he needs rescue? Yonka too. She had been officially appointed by the devil himself as his advocate. Her reply was, "So what if you appointed me? The full detailed conversation will be told another time." Safe to say, the devil was so happy with his choice. He had wanted to abdicate his throne for her, but she refused. Ah well, sometimes it was good to always have someone like that around. No matter how annoying they could be. The other four sisters kept reminding themselves of this, but sometimes. Oh well, better not tread into that corner of the ocean. I am confused, the princess murmured to her tiny friends, who all shared looks and rolled their eyes fondly. Luffy said he was going on an adventure, Ichika reminded her. The best adventure, with his nakama, to be free, Nika added, shouting the last bit. Marriage is not an adventure, not freedom, Sanka concurred. One wonders where these young, tiny creatures received such enlightened wisdom. Oh, she gasped. She was so stupid. He may not want to marry, Yonka had to point out. Why would he want to marry? Yonka too asked. We need to save him, exclaimed the princess. Luffy had called her crybaby, yet he had still saved her, her family, and everyone on Fishman Island. If he needed help, then she would help. She was a strong, independent mermaid. None of the quintuplets pointed out her fast change of mood. Her eyes had suddenly dried up, her grim, confused expression had changed to one that was excited, and oh so very bright. Indeed, we will. Yes, we will save him. No, we won't. Maybe we will. Why will we? But how? The princess swam around excitedly, her hair whooshing behind her as she moved swiftly around even with her huge frame. Her smaller friends swirled around the room with her. Mostly because they were caught up in the current of her passage. While she knew she may be naive, even she knew they were up against Big Mom, and also the evil organization Germa 66 from how Jinbei explained it. What do you mean, how? We're pirates, we have a crew. Yes, we are the Jules Pirates. The best nakama. We have an awesome flag, and we have a ship. We don't have a ship. We may have a ship soon. Dan said it will take a few weeks. It's been weeks. What does it matter if we have a ship? 'Cause we're going on an adventure, to save Luffy. He doesn't need saving, he might need saving. But does he need saving? Of course, he does. Luffy is a princess. Huh? What? Not. Oh, Princess Shirahoshi is Prince Charming. The princess gasped. She was what? I thought we hate Prince Charming. We do, we're cool, not cute, me too. Maybe 3. 4. But the princess fits the role. The other 4 shared a look and nodded emphatically, Megalo joining in. They all could see it. Like a picture getting painted. Princess Shirahoshi will make a great prince. Megalo will be the white horse. The sound of his growling stomach already sounded like the whinny of a noble steed. And the 5 of them will be the very, extremely cool knights, like Jinbei. Clearly the adults of Fishman Island need to be more careful what kind of surface books they allow their kids to read. Apparently they were as dangerous, if not more so, than wedding invitations. Are you ready, Roby, to go on a real adventure, to free your Luffy princessy? The mermaid princess, no prince, felt a strange sense of courage sweep inside of her after being called with her alias. Roby has gone on lots of adventures, mainly on Fishman Island, but an adventure is an adventure. It still counts. Free Luffy, and become the hero. Luffy is not a princess, he's a pirate. He may be a prince and pirate, princess, why does it matter? The mermaid princess Shirahoshi, sorry, Roby. I meant Roby, okay. Roby snatched her straw hat back from Megalo's head, and put it on her own in a swift determined motion. Wait for me Luffy, we're coming to save you, oh. When Vivi saw Luffy next, she was going to throttle him. Slowly, she might even take the time to ask Nami for some tips first. Because as much as she loved him, this was not helping her or Alabasta. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut, and she was doing her best not to look like she was debating whether or not to kill all these Navy witnesses if necessary. Unfortunately, while she was confident her face was a perfect mask, she suspected they were well aware that Pell the Falcon and Chaka the Jackal happened to be standing right behind the Marines aboard Alabasta's flagship, palms resting on their sheathed swords. Which really was a shame, as the Marines who were escorting Vivi and her father's ship had only hurried over because they had seen the bright light, which was the arrival of a certain, unexpected letter, and were concerned. They were simply doing their duty, and she knew their commander was a good person. Why, she would even admit to some satisfaction at seeing a woman rising so high through their ranks. Honestly, there were too many male officers. An officer who would understandably be curious as to why an invitation to Luffy's wedding was sent and what was this why Luffy why and did he even know who the Germa 66 were and now Sanji and why didn't he stop this? And why, Vice Admiral Hina calmly asked, would that pirate be inviting you, princess? Her brain stalled as her thoughts were interrupted. Think, she wailed to herself, trying to think up a plausible lie, or else everything would be for nothing. It's obvious, her father growled out darkly, clenching his fists tightly. Dad, she cried, embracing her familiar habit of trying to calm him down when he got worked up. His doctors were insistent it did his health no good. Ignoring her, he continued, clearly he's mocking us by throwing in our faces the reminder about his time here in Alabasta without getting caught, and everything to do with Crocodile. Oh, prompted the Marine. With a sigh, he forcefully relaxed his body. We both know Straw Hat came to Alabasta to defeat Crocodile, and while Smoker was the one to defeat him. There was a slightest twitch to Hina's eye at the heavy irony in the king's voice. It doesn't change the fact that he ran wild through my country beforehand. Now he's able to rub it in while trying to intimidate my family in the process. Somehow his eyes hardened even further. Would she be safe at such an event? After a shrewdly considering look, the woman nodded and said, Hina believes so. Big Mom's tea parties are supposed to be famous for safe conduct. So long as you obey the rules. Good, he breathed out, more tension relaxing from his body. That's good. Vivi never ne good actor. Well, now it was her turn. Screwing up her face so she projected resolve in the face of danger. With a touch of nervousness as she acknowledged the serious threat of it all, she said, how can I get to this wedding on time? Alabasta cannot afford the retribution of a slighted Yonkou, even so far from their territory. Due to past incidents, Hina knows there are unofficial understandings to help speed up special persons there, was the bitterly reluctant answer. The Navy will only be able to escort you to their borders though, and cannot take responsibility for what happens within. Alright then, so we'd better hurry. Chaka, Pell, you'll be my daughter's bodyguards there. Keep her safe, and away from harm. With surprising strength, King Cobra took his daughter's hand in his own. Come back to your people, stay safe. I will, she promised, ignoring how the look in his eyes was also saying, that means no strangling one of the grooms. Okay, fine. Maybe I can get Nami to do it. -00 to 0 somewhere in East Blue. Are you sure it's true? Maybe it's a fake. A prank? Nope, it's genuine. How do you know? The other man shrugged. According to the mayor, it fits the description of the male fruit, and nobody would be dumb enough to send out fake letters in her name. I mean, why us? We're nobody. Another shrug. Do us it mean that we have to go? The invitation is for 3 people. A slim woman with brown curls bouncing around her head entered the bar at a run, followed by another figure breathing heavily. Show me, Jill demanded, her eyes were just as wild as her curly hair. The calm man with glasses calmly handed her the fancy paper and envelope to her grabby hands. Holy shit, you didn't lie to me, Aaron. Aaron, still breathing hard from running back to the bar with Jill, wheezed. Why would I lie about this? Jill shrugged as she carefully examined the paper and the envelope. It looks real. It does, agreed Vin. Does it? The bartender asked in a shaky voice. He was wishing it was all a bad dream. The writing for who it is addressed to is a bit unclear. I can make a P and RTY, or is it E? Unbeknownst to everyone but a rubber-brained idiot, it was supposed to read Party's Bar. Who knows what nightmares would have happened if Reiju had not taken over writing the invitations. Yes, the scrawling is not clear, but it does seem to spell this bar. The bartender almost fainted. Vin gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Reassuring it wasn't. Aaron tried to give a reassuring smile as he sat on one of the chairs, still wheezing. It turned quickly into a grimace. Jill eyed the bartender, who shrank back. Is there something you aren't telling us? What? Do you have a relationship with any of these people? Met them? Hey. I never. You know me. I was born here, and lived here all my life. I've only met people that came to the bar. You all know more people than me. Vin actually travels around and… Yeah, relax. We're pulling your leg. The bartender let out a nervous laugh. He had not found it funny at all. I can make lots of money out of this, Jill murmured. It's the event of the season. The century I would say, murmured Aaron, having come to the bar and poured himself something to drink. He gave another full glass to the bartender, who took it with both hands thankfully. It told you a lot about his mental state that he didn't grumble about wasted drink, or demanded money from Aaron. So what if he worked for him? Work was work, and drinks got paid for. Shouldn't we give it to the Marines? The bartender asked after taking a few sips of his drink. Both Vin and Jill looked at him as if he lost his last marbles. If you don't want it, I will be happy to take it off your hands, Jill said menacingly. Please, begged the bartender. He would even let her drink for free for life. It would mean bankruptcy, but at least he would live. I don't think that is a good idea. Oh? I'm sure you have few ideas to make money out of this. A few, agreed Jill. The look in her eyes said she was already seeing huge amounts of belly on the horizon. But those are big names there. And I am not sure if the invitation came here on purpose or by mistake, and we may never know. But I don't think we can refuse an invitation from Big Mom, Vin explained calmly. What should I do? Wailed the bartender, dropping the glass out of his hand as it rolled over the bar, spilling the contents. Ignoring the mess, he grabbed his hair in desperation, and mumbled to himself in a panic. It's all because I jinxed myself, isn't it? I just had to think. That the East Blue was the most boring place ever. What happens on the other side of the world doesn't affect us. Yeah, that's what I said. And look at me now, what am I going to do? Relax, man. Hey, here, take another glass. Should I just die? If I die, Big Mom can't kill me. Deep breath, deep breathe. Jill and Vin ignored what was happening on the other side of the bar. You mean? Someone has to go. We've all heard the stories of what happens to someone who refused Big Mom's invitations. And even if we hadn't, the mayor was basically shrieking them. Yeah, she is a Yonko. She has to be crazy. You think she will come here? To destroy the island? The bartender fainted by this point as his body gave up. Aaron caught him, and laid him down on the floor, calling his name. Maybe not herself, but she will send some of her allies or crew. So we have to go, or else. Vin nodded. Look at the bright side, it will put our island on the world map. Vin and Jill let out a loud snort. They found it pretty ironic to consider how their little island might become famous by the fact it was wiped off the map. Ah, gallows humor. Jill sighed. I can still make lots of money in other ways. But who will go? This one? She pointed at the unconscious bartender who was being shaken awake without much success. The invitation did arrive here. And another too. I assume you want to go, Jill said shrewdly. Only to keep the island safe, Vin said, and pushed his glasses up his nose. Jill snorted at the obvious lie, yet didn't call him on it. The man was vibrating with excitement. His attempt at a cool demeanor did not fool her. You may die. Death is but a journey, he airily said. The line was delivered in a manner that left no doubt it was some grandiose quote. But it was the wrong audience. Who knew? Reading books does rot your brain. That leaves one. How about you? Vin ignored her quip. Me? Jill seemed to consider this. To see history unfold in front of her. And if she got her hand on Straw Hat Luffy, she could question him, and get her answers to all the bets. Lots of belly to be made, except… Nah, someone needs to keep the people here on their toes, and if things come to head, I will be needed to help with evacuating the island and such. Vin nodded his agreement. Still we need a third one. Any idea? Here you are. Jill said jovially, extremely so. Rick froze in his place, just about to enter the bar. The words, "It's Rick, for Kraken's sake," died on his lips. The smile on Jill's face was pleased. It wasn't a grimace or smirk. but a true-to-the-blue smile. It showed all her teeth. The problem was that Jill never smiled. Never, ever, and definitely not at Rick. I already paid. Yes, you did, after I dragged it out of you. She was still smiling. Rick felt he should turn tail and run. Maybe swim off this island. About the interest you owe me, I have the thing for you to pay it all up. To tell you the truth, not only would you pay up any future bets you have, I will owe you one. Jill owed no one anything. They all owed her. Yeah, his instincts screamed as he took a step inside the bar towards where the group was sitting. He would come to regret this decision. Drac raised his arm to cleave through the pests before him. Honestly, while his initial motivation had been to just remove them from the path of his ship, it was an act of mercy really. Even Perona, who had come along with him to help restock some stores for the pantry missing from their garden, could tell there was no way these people would survive the seas. Their ship was obviously stolen from people who actually knew how to sail and care for it, and it was already in horrible condition. He knew people who would kill them for such blasphemy alone. Even amateurs was too polite a term for them. Granted, the red-haired, burly woman's rage-induced shouts about a mom or something had been impressive. It was what had made him pause his imminent attack. Except now the red-haired woman was sniveling and shaking away. On the other hand, she was still defiantly standing in front of her men in a protective gesture. What show? Two simultaneous flashes of light gave him pause. Huh? Said Perona, picking up the piece of paper. The terrified insects had missed that they had received one too. Curious, he vaulted over to their ship and picked it up to read. It says you're invited to Straw Hat's wedding, cried Perona, him and the curly-browed cook. Truly Zoro had worn off on her. Now if only she would adopt his stoicism as well. As are these people, he said dryly, flicking his piercing eyes onto them. Strangely, at his words the burly woman among them stiffened up, and seemed to find some motive of courage. What did you say? She managed to grit out with something resembling politeness. Who are you to Straw Hat? He said instead. Well, I did raise him, didn't I? And that fake mom, Yonko, Shunko my behind, bitchy monster trying to steal my baby from me. Luffy is mine. I have the scars to prove it. Wanna see? Do you know how many hairs I lost because of him and his brother, and now here he is getting married off to some. Ignoring the diatribe of this Dayton, he guessed according to what was written on the invitation. Hawkeye calculated time, distance, and obstacles. On such short notice, even for him it would be cutting it close to get from this far up paradise and down to Big Mom's territory within the New World. To do so when he had other responsibilities. It could be a satisfying challenge, but more likely a nuisance. And yet, to show up with Straw Hat's bandit family in tow, and to see how this woman, one who defied him, handled both Big Mom and the Germa 66 spawn. Never mind, he already knew that there was no way this wedding would be boring, and including her would be a fine cherry on top. He wondered if he had time to maybe stop by his home to pick up a few wine bottles to take with him on this journey. Good entertainment needed exotic drinks to accompany it. And the look on Lin Lin's face alone if this woman called her Yonko, Shunko, would be payment enough for all the troubles these bandits would undoubtedly cause as extra luggage. Plus, one could say he would owe the young man at least a little for the invitation to the finest foods and wine of the New World. To say nothing of the fun he could have with red hair over this. Oh my. As he recalled. Why yes, Straw Hat could not invite red hair without breaking their vow between each other. Which was rich chocolate syrup to go with that cherry. He would have to call the man. Maybe casually mention the invite. Yes, he could feel his boredom vanishing faster and faster. Why, he can't remember was the last time he started to feel so excited for what was to come. He might be able to see Zoro's improvement too. After all, it was Straw Hat who was his captain, so he was sure to show up. Maybe Perona will be inspired after she sees him to find her own independence, or to join up with his student at least. Any and all demands in the background by the young lady in question to be his +1 were ignored. She would merely cause fuss of the irritating variety, not the chaotic he wanted. Plus he had another idea. Decided, he paid attention again to the rabble, who had interpreted his silence as acceptance, and were all becoming increasingly loud and unruly as they vented their feelings. A sweep of his gaze, and a smile with teeth, brought them in line. My pardon, he apologized with a slight, formal bow. I should have introduced myself. I am Hawkeye Mahawk of the Seven Warlords, and it would be my pleasure to escort you to this wedding. -00 to 0. The newspaper said all that, demanded Nami. Her sharp voice carried over the loud and unintelligible chaos the marriage announcement of their captain and cook created. Well, no, admitted Ace. He involuntarily gulped as the sudden chaos had vanished as quickly as it had appeared, and every eye was staring at him. They just admitted Charlotte Linlin, the emperor, was his mom. The government's keeping the wedding quiet, yet the full story spread through the underground network. Even then, it's pretty much confirmed that Luffy's her son, and then we got word that she'd nabbed him. And she's using him to seal a deal with the Germa 66, who are pretty nasty customers themselves. Wait, said Zoro, a drop of sweat on his forehead, so the Big Mom pirates abducted him because he's a part of their family? They want him to join up? Yes, grimaced Ace. All her top officers are her kids. And Luffy's not only somehow her kid, but he's pretty strong too. The Straw Hats stared at him blankly, as one tipped their heads to the right in confusion. The synchronization of it was frankly disturbing for everyone else. Just how close were these people to each other? Wait, Usopp finally said, holding up his palms. You're saying? He trailed off as words failed him, and looked to the others for help. You're saying, Zoro said with utter incredulity, that she had her strongest guy steal Luffy away from us, and the moron cook, to take him back to her place, because she expects to be able to force them both into a marriage alliance, and serve her as her officers? Exactly, Sabo confirmed with a grim nod, a beat. As when the Straw Hats broke out laughing. They grabbed their bellies, some lost control and fell to the ground and rolled on it. Tears flowed, and they just continued to express their hilarity. Yo ho 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 ho, MWA ha 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 ha. Foo 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 foo. UHA ha 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 ha. The touch of hysteria to their voices, a jagged and sharp touch of madness, made the rest take a few hesitant steps back. These people might be a bunch of newbie pirates still, even if they did alright against the fodder of the beast pirates, yet even the Whitebeard division commanders, veterans of hundreds of battles and monsters, felt a chill of unease at provoking them. What kind of crew would declare war upon the beast pirates? What kind of crew would set fire to the flag of Enies Lobby? What kind of crew would follow and serve the man to be the king of the pirates? Over 2 years ago, Ace had told his crybaby of a little brother that he would see Pops become the next pirate king. He had held to that even in the face of learning what the kid had pulled off. It was only now that he felt a sliver of a doubt tarnish his conviction. So as he always did when threatened by anything, he attacked. You think this is a laughing matter, he roared. Only ha 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 the best, managed Nami. A super joke, Frankie boomed before his legs gave out. After a few more giggles, Zoro mastered himself. Well then, he said, a few more snickers escaping. I wish her all the best. In the meantime we've got a wedding to crash. Just like that yoi, deadpanned Marco. Do you even know what you're up against? Instead of answering, Zoro ignored the 1st Division commander, and addressed Ace. I suppose this means you'll be wanting to come along? For a split second Ace was too befuddled to answer right away. After all, they would be joining him, except Zoro took that brief silence as an answer. Excellent, glad to have you, and I'm sure you and Sable know does Curlybrow fit in? Well, said Marco, managing to maintain his stoic appearance, it turns out your chef's part of the Germa 66. Given the theme naming, he's the 3rd son of their leader, Vinsmoke Judge. Not sure how he ties into this, but like Ace said, they're bad news and a global power in their own right, if not on the level of Pops and the rest. Still, they're called the Empire of Evil for a reason. They must have gone to a lot of trouble to get his wanted poster to say he's to be taken alive. So he's valuable to them. He's to marry a Charlotte daughter, while your captain marries his sister, Reiju, in an unprecedented double marriage. Whatever's going on, it looks like it might be a full-blown alliance. Of course, giggled Nami, her earlier guilt being buried away. Luffy's mom is a living nightmare, and Sanji's family heads up a make-believe, mythical evil army that's actually real, and which he never told us about. Oh, and they both have siblings we were never told about or met. You mean more than the other ones he never told us about, chirped Chopper. Wait, interjected Sabo, palms raised. Luffy never told you guys about Ace and I? No he didn't, screamed the weakling trio into his face, fangs flashing, breathing fire, and a landscape of death and misery in their eyes. He never tells us squat, and next thing we know we have Vice Admiral Garp the hero knocking down walls to visit him. Managed Ace and Sabo as they slowly backed off. Foo, laughed Robin. What new surprises about his family will we learn next? Don't even joke about it, hold on, said Zoro, clutching his aching sides. First off, how's that lead you guys to be here of all places? Oh, well, said Sabo, waving his hand awkwardly. Obviously I knew Luffy would never be tied down like that, so I hurried over to meet up with Ace. -00 to 0 flashback. Who's that guy holding Ace in the water? His former first mate. Don't sweat it. So you're Sabo, huh? -00 to 0 present. So you're saying Dragon and Whitebeard are in an alliance? Asked Robin with a tilt of her head. Despite how casual she sounded, Sabo was well aware of what a loaded question that was. Nah. Not officially anyways. After all, if we're going to be replacing the world government, we can't be associated with murderous, criminal s like you lot. Especially publicly. No offense. Except for Ace and Luffy. His darling little brother made a rude gesture, while the rest shrugged it off. We get it, Yoi, hummed Marco. After all, they painted Pops as a demon or worse to everybody outside the New World. I mean, he is, but still. Coughing into his fist, Sabo continued. Anyways, so I'm not really here, you get what I'm saying? And while Whitebeard's not in the mood to go to war with Big Mom, messing things up for her is fine. Especially given the threat she'd be with the Germa 66 on her side, which down the line would also be a big problem for the Revolutionary Army. Especially given their plans for the quickly upcoming Reverie. Everyone knew both Whitebeard and Kaido were on their last legs, and probably going to go out killing each other. Especially after Luffy shut down the other Emperor's main supplier in the form of one Doflamingo. Given how studiously neutral Red Hair was, if Big Mom gained control of the Vinsmoke's military might on top of her own. Well, Sabo knew they could not fight the world government and her at the same time. So he would have to wrap this up quickly, and head back to the others. And of course both Dragon and Whitebeard knew better than to give orders that would inevitably be disobeyed. Both brothers knew that if they were the ones captive, Luffy would do anything to save them, so how could they do any less for their baby brother? After all, Luffy had broken into Impelled Down due to a whole misunderstanding where he thought Ace was there, as opposed to really being with the Beast Pirates. So how could they do any less? Not to mention how even before he left, Sabo knew that Ivankov, who Luffy had rescued in his technically unnecessary quest to save Ace, was already planning his own rescue mission to return the favor if nobody else was going to do it. Now Ace took up the story, and like Marco said, while we were sailing, one of our allied crews got a glimpse of a large fleet of Kaido's ships, who we're still at war with. They've been holed up in Wano all this time. None of the Straw Hats batted an eye at that little revelation related to their samurai companions. Meanwhile Momonosuke found the ground utterly fascinating to stare at. So for them to come out, we figured they were after you lot, given how you messed up Doflamingo's operation for them. And not to mention Straw Hats' help during the war between Pops, the Marines, and Kaido 2 years ago. What about you though? Said Sabo, voice carefully neutral. You said you were here for a Vivre card? Yeah, one of Law's people knows how to make one. Except you told us you made one back at Sabaody, so that's sorted. Ah, that I did. The older brother made a point of pulling out the piece of paper to show everyone it was perfectly healthy. Sue, what's that you said about crashing a wedding? A shadow loomed over the Straw Hats as their eyes glowed red, and fangs glinted. Oh, I'm sure our invitations got lost in the mail, said Nami sweetly. These things happened, grinned Usopp jovially. We're family, pointed out Robin. There's no need for an invitation. That's right. Chirped Chopper. Yo ho ho ho, I've just the songs, cheered Brooke. I'll go iron my birthday speedo, beamed Frankie. No wedding's complete without a sacrifice upon the altar, smiled Robin tenderly. And red looks so lovely on wedding whites. Grunted Zoro, disinterested in the theatrics. He already knows we're coming. Both of him. "Right," said Ace amiably, refusing to show any reaction to that little display. Besides, and now Zoro's teeth were barred in a malicious grin. This probably the closest the pervy cook'll ever get to a woman. How can I pass up the chance to wreck it for him? His crewmates sighed, and Nami bopped him on the head. Rebecca spoke up for the first time, about that. What's this Reiju like? Or pudding? Beside her, Viola flushed a little, realizing her niece's thoughts. Well, drawled Ace, given their families, and all the Germa 66 and Big Mom pirates have done, I'd have to say they're evil, devious, untrustworthy individuals. What my darling, open-minded brother is trying to say, Sabo dryly said, is that even if they were nice kids growing up, they weren't removed from their families like Luffy and your chef must have been. For the Charlottes and Vinsumkis, the people they would have been raised among since childhood, and what it would take to survive to adulthood, means that they've done some pretty awful stuff, with personalities to match. Like really, it gets pretty horrible the stories you hear about them. Of course that's what I said, number you didn't. Humph, pouted Ace a bit, before getting a bit cheeky. Although, even with that being the case, I kinda feel sorry for him. I didn't really get a chance to meet Sanji, but can you imagine marrying my brother? Never mind your chef. We're going to be doing this Reiju a favor by ruining it all. True, nodded Sabo. Nami and Robin exchanged knowing glances with each other. While the two of them deeply loved Luffy, there was the unspoken agreement that it was not romantically. Their feelings for him were not something they, even the archaeologist, would try to limit and lessen by putting into mere words, yet real all the same. However, they were not blind to the fact it could be surprisingly easy for certain young ladies to fall, and fall hard, for their rubber-headed captain. Another shared look at Rebecca confirmed her own flushed face, and visibly biting back any words. Not that Luffy's equally dense siblings noticed. And given a few offhand comments by Luffy about Hancock. And of course you by chance have anything concrete about this Reiju? Nami gently asked, as innocent as a delicate flower. Not really, admitted Sabo. He dug into his coat a bit. As weird as it is, honestly one of the best sources we've got are these comic books. Sora, Warrior of the Sea? Said Robin, sounding a touch insulted. I think I've heard of those, said Frankie, peering over for a closer look at the issues Sabo handed out. Some bright spark in the world government got the idea to write these as propaganda, and to make people not believe a so-called fictional organization's really real, explained Marco. They're basically about the evil Germa 66 being beaten by the legendary Marine Sora. The only thing that seems off is how in real life these villains tend to win. Everything else is surprisingly accurate. Disturbingly so I've even heard. They're led by Judge and his 5 children, with Reiju as the oldest daughter. Unbeknownst even to herself, Rebecca was starting to glare at the comic pictures of Poison Pink, which seemed to emphasize looking at her rear and cleavage. In fact, twisting around to show both at once looked pretty painful on the spine. That includes Sanji? Asked Brooke, pointing at the sole brother with blonde hair. It says, Stealth Black, is the, no 3 feet member of the Germa 66, and that fits with his name. Fake curly brows looks almost as stupid as the real one, said Zoro with a smirk. Oh, he was so going to mess with the stupid chef with all this. This is so cool, gushed Chopper. So what special, evil ability does Stealth Black have? Can Sanji do it? -00 to 0. No, Sanji, huffed Reiju, be sensible. He just glared at the object she was offering him, about the size and shape of a good can of beans, with a 3 written on it. You know what sort of threats we're going to be facing, she cajoled. You'll need every edge you can get. Look, this raid suit will make you stronger, faster, defend you from bullets and fire, and, well, you know what Stealth Black can do, right? That's from those ridiculous comics, isn't it? Yes. How's that even a thing? It's a little funny actually, she shrugged. But yes, it was all the world government. For you. They had to make up an ability for you. So I suggested it would be a great joke if we made a raid suit for you based on it. In truth, it was to be able to give this to you if I had the chance. The frown on her brother's face became more conflicted. So what's Stealth Black's special move? Invisibility. Now he was interested as he gasped in shock. Peeping Toms around the world bowed down and groveled before the one true master. For he had received enlightenment. Amen. With shaking hands, he reached out towards it, before taking it in a steely grasp. My crushed dream has been revitalized by the Germa science that I always despised. Thank you, Reiju. Thank you. This power will surely be useful, for peeping in a woman's bat. No, in helping my crew. Good, she said with a little uncertainty. Yes, he said, staring at it with a feverish expression. I will certainly use this for No, with a dark expression, she plucked it from his hands and stalked off. But Reiju. No, I don't really mind if it's just peasants, but, no. Reiju, no, oh, he turns invisible, answered Sabo offhandedly. Not that it's likely they'll give him Germa tech to do so. It's not like he can turn invisible already, is it? He'd be caught a lot less while perving, deadpanned Zoro. No, sniggered Usopp. He's be caught by all the blood gushing out of his nose. With a groan, Nami smacked his head too. Don't even think about it. With a huff, she put her hands on her shapely waist. So basically you're saying this Reiju and Pudding are devious, evil, untrustworthy, and have no idea what they're getting into. Yep, smirked Ace. You know it, said Sabo, and his smirk was as malicious as his brother's. The glorious anticipation of schadenfreude. Okay then, said Zoro, taking charge of his crew. We should get back with the others. Plus there's a lot of help these minks need. Right, cried Chopper. I've got to get back to the patients. Oh yes, nodded Brooke. There's still a lot to do to help, said Robin sagely. I'll get some super repairs done. The minks present were nearly crying at such generosity from those who had already saved them. Oh, don't worry there, reassured Marco. No way I'd leave former crewmates in the lurch like this, Yoi. Especially since they're still family for me, said a new voice, and everyone turned to see a man with lipstick and a kimono come to join them. Those more informed recognized him as Whitebeard Division Commander Izo. The Straw Hats also recognized the woman with him as Koala, having met her at Sabodi with Sabo. In her they had recognized a kindred spirit in trying to keep a ball of chaos in line. Even worse, since their respective headaches, whom they would all die for, were brothers. Koala beamed Robin, while the younger woman threw herself at the archaeologist for a tight hug. Still in his dragon form, Momonosuke's eyes were bugging out at the sight of Izo, yet he was stammering too hard to be understood. Indeed, the Whitebeard pirate mistook it for the gibberish of Rebecca's pet and dismissed it. At first glance the similarity to a dragon had been striking, yet it had been too weak and scrawny to be a threat. Besides, there was only ever a single dragon at a time, so any similarities were simply a coincidence. So this is Zoe, he said, looking around in wonder. Now I finally get to see what the dog and cat were always going on about. Do you mean our kings? Asked Pedro diffidently, hoping to convey the need for secrecy here. Because yes, they knew this man was of the Kazuki clan, but also it was not Pedro's decision to make when certain secrets were to be revealed, and he hoped to bring their rulers in on this. Both Izo and Marco's eyes twitched slightly in surprise, only before they could say anything or figure it out. Izo, the gunslinger, gaped for a split second before grinning wide at the sight of his old friends, brothers, and so much more. Inuarashi, Nekomamushi, Kinemon, oh wow, Kin, you haven't aged a day, this something Toki did? -00 solemnly Kaido placed down the sake cup beside the picture of Jack, the last of his disasters, and a valued member of his crew. Someone he had actually respected. Now though, his vivre card had burned away, and he was lost. Slowly he stood up from where he knelt, and resisted the urge to grab some more booze. With the burning fury inside of him, he knew he was at risk of just flying off for vengeance, only to risk disaster by leaving Wano woefully undefended, or even being captured himself. As things already stood, his dream was in danger of dying. Not in glorious battle as it deserved, but withering away like a parched vine. First Joker, now Jack. For the former, well, his defeat was a little less surprising after learning certain new revelations from his spies. It makes sense for him to be that hag's spawn. She was always thorn in my side even when we got along. Like mother, like son. Of course that doesn't mean I am going to let it go. Former crewmates or not, debt I owe her or not, this the second time the little monkey brat interfered with my plans. One way or another there will be no third time. As for whoever killed Jack, a part of him warned that he should let the matter go, that his hold upon his territory was perilous as it was, especially as the accursed Kazuki heir and his rabble were still free. However, he also had to know who had killed his man and how. Nor could he let this insult pass. So deep in thought, he stalked away from the shrine, vowing he would have his vengeance.